Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a moment and think about where you are right now, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You are standing at the crossroads of your life. You have the power to choose which direction to take. You've probably been thinking about your dreams, your goals, your desires. But here's the reality: thinking alone won't get you there. No matter how big your vision is, it will remain just that, a vision, until you take the most important step: action. Today, I'm going to tell you something that will challenge the way you've been thinking. It's time to stop thinking and start doing. Every moment you hesitate, every second you wait, every excuse you make is a moment of your life slipping through your fingers. But right now, you have the opportunity to change that. The truth is, the future you dream of won't come to you. You have to go to it. And the way you do that is simple: by taking action. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. You see, in life, the greatest achievers are not those who thought the most, but those who did the most. They didn't wait for the perfect moment. They didn't wait for everything to line up. They saw an opportunity, they took a step, and then they took another and another. And before they knew it, they weren't just dreaming anymore. They were living their dream. So today, let go of the fear, the doubts, the perfectionism, and the endless planning. The time for thinking is over. The time for doing is now. This is your moment to take action, to build momentum, and to step into the life you were meant to live. Most of us go through life with ideas, dreams, and goals that we think about constantly. We can see where we want to go, the things we want to achieve, and the life we want to create. Yet, despite having all these thoughts, many of us struggle to take the steps needed to make them a reality. The reason for this is simple: thinking alone doesn't bring results. It's action that transforms thoughts into tangible outcomes. We are often told that the mind is a powerful tool, and indeed it is. The mind allows us to visualize our future, to plan out the steps we believe will lead us to success, and to create the image of who we want to become. However, that vision will remain just that, an image, unless we act on it. Action is the catalyst that turns potential into reality. Without action, ideas are just abstract concepts. It's like a blueprint for a house that will never be built if no one picks up the hammer and starts working. The dreams we envision in our minds are a mere possibility. It's only through our actions that they can become inevitable. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that as long as we know what we want and understand how to get there, we are already on the right track. But in reality, knowledge without action leads to stagnation. This is where so many people get stuck. They wait until they have everything figured out. They tell themselves, once I have the right strategy, or once I know all the details, or once I feel more confident, then they will start. But here's the truth: that moment will never come. There will always be more to learn, more obstacles to anticipate, and more reasons to hesitate. The longer you wait for the perfect time to act, the longer you'll remain in the cycle of thinking and never actually move forward. Success is not reserved for those who think the most or who come up with the best ideas. It's for those who are willing to take action. The greatest achievers in the world didn't sit back and wait for everything to align perfectly before they started. They took the first step, even when they didn't have all the answers. They started with what they had, with what they knew at that moment, and trusted that the next step would become clear as they continued moving. Each action they took brought them closer to their goals, even when they weren't sure where the next step would lead them. They didn't wait for certainty. They created it through their actions. One of the most important things to realize is that action breeds momentum. When you take action, no matter how small, you create movement. That movement might seem insignificant at first, but over time, it begins to build momentum. Momentum is a powerful force. It propels you forward, making the next step easier than the first. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning, but once you've taken that first step, you begin to generate momentum. This momentum becomes your ally, helping you push through resistance, overcome obstacles, and stay on course. Think about it. Have you ever spent weeks, months, or even years planning and thinking about something only to find that when you finally took action, it wasn't as difficult as you imagined? That's the power of momentum. The longer you wait, the more you feed into the fear and doubt. But once you start, the fear loses its grip on you. You build confidence through action, and confidence creates momentum. It's this momentum that helps you keep moving even when things get tough. Another crucial aspect of taking action is that it helps you learn. We often think that we need to know everything before we begin. We spend time collecting knowledge, preparing for every possible scenario, and hoping that when the time comes, we'll be ready. But preparation doesn't come from thinking about what might happen. It comes from doing. When you take action, you inevitably make mistakes, but those mistakes become invaluable lessons. You learn what works, what doesn't, and what needs to change. Each failure teaches you something that no amount of planning ever could. The myth of needing to be perfectly prepared before taking action is something that keeps many people stuck in the cycle of thinking. They wait for the ideal moment when all conditions are perfect, only to realize that no such moment exists. The reality is that action is the best form of preparation. By taking action, you'll discover new solutions, gain new insights, and develop new skills that you never would have learned from simply thinking or planning. Action also aligns you with opportunities that you cannot anticipate. When you step into motion, you put yourself in a position to encounter the people, resources, and situations that can move you forward. Opportunities often don't present themselves to those who are sitting still. They present themselves to those who are actively moving, even if they don't yet know exactly where they're headed. Action is like a magnet that attracts new possibilities into your life. But you can only attract these opportunities if you are willing to take the first step. In conclusion, thinking is a powerful tool, but it is only through action that we truly bring our visions to life. Every dream, every goal, every desire you have remains just an idea until you act on it. Action is what turns potential into results, ideas into reality, and dreams into accomplishments. If you find yourself stuck in the cycle of overthinking, remember the key to progress is not in thinking more, but in doing more. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for the right circumstances, and start with what you have, where you are. The moment you take action is the moment you begin to change your life. Fear is an emotion that holds an immense amount of power over us. It often becomes the greatest barrier between where we are and where we want to go. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of making mistakes, or even the fear of the unknown can paralyze us, making it difficult to take that first step toward our goals. It's easy to understand why fear is such a powerful force. It's ingrained in our nature as a survival mechanism. The problem is that in today's world, fear of failure isn't saving us from a real physical threat. Instead, it stops us from achieving our fullest potential. The reality is that fear, when not managed, can keep us stuck in a cycle of inaction. What many people don't realize is that fear is a natural part of growth and success. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what your goals are. Fear is something that every successful person has had to deal with. The difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who don't isn't the amount of fear they experience, but how they choose to respond to it. In most cases, fear convinces us that we're not ready, that we're not capable, or that we might fail. The ironic truth, however, is that fear of failure often causes us to avoid taking action, and in doing so, we end up failing by default. The fear of making mistakes or not getting things perfect keeps us in a constant state of preparation and hesitation, but nothing ever gets done in the process. The first step in overcoming fear is understanding that fear will never fully disappear. You'll never reach a point where fear is no longer a factor in the decisions you make. It's always going to be there, lingering in the background, trying to convince you that it's safer to stay where you are than to step into the unknown. But the truth is, fear doesn't have the power to stop you unless you allow it to. The greatest way to overcome fear is to face it head on. Once you acknowledge that fear is just a feeling, nothing more, nothing less, You begin to realize that it has no real control over your actions unless you give it that power. Taking action, even in the face of fear, is the best way to combat it. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's the truth. The more you take action, the less power fear has over you. Every small step you take toward your goal, despite feeling scared or unsure, takes away some of the fear's grip on you. In fact, each time you act, no matter how imperfectly, you prove to yourself that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. Action breeds confidence. When you start to see that you can move forward despite your fear, you start to understand that fear isn't as threatening as it initially seemed. What's more, fear often stems from the unknown. We fear what we don't understand, and that fear can keep us in a place of comfort and safety. But the moment you begin to act, the unknown becomes the known. You learn, you grow, and you adapt. The more action you take, the more clarity you gain. The initial uncertainty starts to fade, and the fear of the unknown is replaced with knowledge and experience. You begin to see that the things you feared, whether they were mistakes, setbacks, or obstacles, are just part of the process. They aren't signs of failure, they're signs that you're moving forward. A key element of overcoming fear is realizing that failure is not the end. In fact, failure is one of the most important teachers in life. Failure, or rather what we perceive as failure, is a stepping stone to success. Every successful person has experienced failure, some more than others, but they never allowed it to define them. Instead, they used it as a tool for growth. The fear of failure can make us hesitant to act, but once we take action, we realize that failure is simply an opportunity to learn and course correct. Failure becomes an invaluable resource, showing us where we need to improve, where we're strong, and where we need to pivot. Another way to look at fear is to see it as a sign that you're doing something meaningful. If you feel fear when you're about to take action, it's often a sign that you're on the edge of something important, something that could change your life. Fear typically arises when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, when you're about to challenge the status quo, when you're about to grow. If you're not feeling fear, it might mean that you're not pushing yourself hard enough. The moments of greatest growth are often accompanied by the most fear. So when you start feeling that fear creeping in, recognize it for what it is, a signal that you're on the right track. Ultimately, overcoming fear isn't about eliminating it. It's about learning to manage it. The most successful individuals aren't those who don't feel fear. They're the ones who act in spite of it. They understand that fear doesn't have to paralyze them. It can be a motivator. The next time fear tries to stop you from taking action, remember, this fear is not your enemy. It's simply a challenge to be faced, and it's only when you step forward, despite your fear, that you will realize just how much strength you truly have. The only way to conquer fear is to face it, take action, and keep moving forward. Every time you do, you strip fear of its power, and in turn, you create a life that is not controlled by doubt, but driven by courage. When you choose to take that first step, no matter how small, you are telling fear that it no longer has control over you. And with each successive step, fear will lose its grip, and your confidence, along with your success, will grow. We live in an era where overthinking has become a common habit, one that we often justify as a necessary part of making the right decisions. We tell ourselves, I need to think things through, or I want to make sure I'm fully prepared before I take any action. On the surface, this approach may seem sensible. After all, who wouldn't want to ensure every detail is perfect before moving forward? However, in reality, overthinking often becomes a barrier to progress rather than a pathway to success. What we don't realize is that the more we think about something, the more complex and daunting it becomes, to the point where we may talk ourselves out of taking any action at all. Overthinking can be a subtle form of procrastination. The more we analyze a situation, the more reasons we find to hesitate, to second-guess ourselves, or to delay taking action. We get stuck in an endless loop of analysis, calculating risks, weighing options, considering every possible outcome. And while this may feel productive, it often leads nowhere. Instead of moving forward with a decision, we end up paralyzed by the endless cycle of what ifs. Each thought, while often well-intended, only serves to make the process feel more complicated and overwhelming. The result? We stay stuck, thinking about what we could do rather than actually doing it. This tendency to overthink often stems from a fear of making the wrong choice. We become so consumed by the idea of failure that we overcompensate by trying to control every possible variable, hoping that by overanalyzing, we can predict the future and ensure a flawless outcome. But the truth is, no amount of thinking can eliminate risk or guarantee success. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we prepare or plan, there will always be elements beyond our control. The longer we stay in the realm of thought without taking action, the more likely we are to talk ourselves out of doing anything at all. The paradox here is that while we think we're being more cautious by overthinking, we are, in fact, increasing the likelihood of failure by remaining in the planning stage for too long. The more we think, the more obstacles we create in our own minds. The ideal path seems to become increasingly distant as we imagine every worst-case scenario. What started as a simple decision now feels like a monumental task. And eventually, the fear of making the wrong decision prevents us from making any decision at all. We convince ourselves that we need to have everything figured out before we act, when in reality, the only way to gain the clarity we need is through action. Taking action is the antidote to overthinking. When we stop analyzing and start doing, we shift from a state of paralysis to a state of momentum. Action helps us break free from the trap of overthinking by providing clarity that no amount of thought ever could. The moment we take a step, however small, we gain immediate feedback. This feedback, whether positive or negative, is invaluable. It tells us what's working and what's not, and it helps us refine our approach. The more we act, the more we learn, and the clearer our path becomes. Each action, each step forward, simplifies the process and brings us closer to our desired outcome. What seemed complex and overwhelming when we were stuck in thought becomes manageable and even straightforward once we start taking action. In fact, action is often the best way to simplify what seemed complicated in our minds. When we're thinking without acting, the possibilities are endless and our minds race to fill in every detail. We imagine every scenario, both good and bad, and create a mental maze of potential outcomes. But once we take action, we start to cut through that mental clutter. We no longer need to speculate about the future. We are creating our own future with each step we take. As we progress, things begin to make more sense, the choices become clearer, and the complexity that once seemed so daunting becomes a series of manageable tasks. The fog of overthinking clears, and we see the way forward more clearly. Overthinking also often leads to a sense of perfectionism. We believe that if we just plan a little longer, if we research a little more, we can eliminate all risks and uncertainties. But this is a trap. Perfectionism isn't just an enemy of progress, it's a lie. The perfect conditions will never exist. The right moment will never arrive, and the perfect plan will never materialize. There will always be variables beyond our control. What truly matters is the willingness to begin to take imperfect action in the face of uncertainty. As we take action, we can adjust, improve, and adapt. We become better equipped to deal with the challenges and obstacles that arise along the way because we're learning as we go, rather than remaining frozen by the fear of making a mistake. In essence, overthinking is a form of self-sabotage. It keeps us trapped in a mental loop, circling around the same thoughts, never breaking free into action. The more we think, the more obstacles we perceive, and the less likely we are to take the leap toward our goals. The way out of this trap is simple: stop thinking so much and start doing. Taking action is not just about making progress. It's about shifting your mindset from one of fear and uncertainty to one of growth and momentum. When you stop overthinking and start acting, you free yourself from the cycle of analysis paralysis, and you begin to see the path forward. You stop imagining obstacles and you start encountering opportunities. The first step might be the hardest, but it's also the most important. And once you take it, you'll find that the rest of the journey becomes much easier. When we start out on a new endeavor, whether it's a business venture, a personal goal, or a creative project, one of the most powerful forces we have is our vision, the image we hold in our minds of what success looks like. That vision fuels our motivation, helps us set our goals, and serves as the inspiration that drives us forward. But what often happens as we begin to move forward is that we start to notice obstacles, setbacks, and challenges that we didn't initially anticipate. These difficulties can easily derail us if we let them. We may face failures, hit roadblocks, or encounter unexpected detours that make it seem as if our vision is unattainable. And in those moments, it's easy to become discouraged or even think about giving up. What most people don't realize, however, is that setbacks and failures are an essential part of the process. They are not signs that we are on the wrong path. They are the very experiences that will refine and strengthen our journey. Without setbacks, we wouldn't learn the lessons we need to evolve. We wouldn't develop the resilience required to overcome future challenges. It's through adversity that we are shaped, not just in terms of our capabilities, but in terms of our character. The key is not to view setbacks as failures, but as opportunities to grow and improve. One of the most valuable things we can do when facing challenges is to adjust our expectations. Success is rarely a straight line from point A to point B. In fact, the path to success is often more like a winding road full of unexpected twists and turns. There will be moments when things don't go according to plan, when obstacles seem to appear out of nowhere, and when the vision we started with seems far out of reach. But if we allow ourselves to get discouraged in those moments, we miss the most crucial lesson. Success isn't just about the destination, it's about the journey, the growth, and the learning that happens along the way. Many of the greatest achievers in history encountered failure repeatedly before they reached their goals. Thomas Edison, when asked about his numerous failures while inventing the light bulb, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This mindset is what separates those who succeed from those who give up. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about embracing it as part of the process. Every setback is a lesson that teaches you something new, something that brings you closer to your goal. The trick is to stay focused on your vision and not allow setbacks to define your journey. Another important point to recognize is that success often takes longer than we anticipate. We tend to think that once we have a clear vision, the road to success will be quick and smooth. But the truth is, great achievements take time. It's the consistency of effort, the daily grind, and the persistence to keep moving forward, even when progress seems slow, that ultimately leads to success. Often, when we don't see immediate results, we start to question our approach, our abilities, or our vision. But what we don't see in those moments is the progress we're making beneath the surface. The roots are growing deep even when we can't see the plant. This delayed gratification is a reality that we must accept if we want to achieve anything meaningful. Patience is one of the greatest virtues in the pursuit of success. If you want to achieve something truly extraordinary, you have to be prepared to put in the work, face the setbacks, and continue even when the results are not immediately visible. Think about a tree. It starts as a tiny seed buried beneath the soil. For a long time, nothing seems to be happening, but beneath the surface, its roots are expanding and its foundation is growing stronger. Eventually, the tree breaks through the ground, and from that point forward, its growth becomes visible. Success works in much the same way. The time and effort you invest will eventually manifest in ways you may not immediately see. But if you remain patient, consistent, and focused on your vision, the results will come. The ability to adapt is also crucial in the face of setbacks. Sometimes the path you've envisioned isn't the one that will lead to success, and in those moments, you need the flexibility to adjust your approach. This doesn't mean giving up on your vision. It means being willing to refine it, evolve it, and find new ways to reach it. There's a saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, if something isn't working, don't be afraid to pivot, try a new method, or seek out new resources. Adaptation is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It shows that you are willing to learn and grow, and that you have the resilience to keep pushing forward, no matter what. It's also essential to remember that setbacks and failures don't happen in a vacuum. They don't define your potential or determine your worth. These are just temporary obstacles on the road to success. The true measure of your ability is not how many times you failed, but how many times you've gotten up after falling. Every time you face a setback and choose to continue moving forward, you build mental and emotional muscle. Each time you adapt and refine your approach, you strengthen your resolve. The more setbacks you overcome, the more resilient you become, and the closer you get to realizing your vision. In the end, success is not a straight line. It's a journey filled with twists and turns, ups and downs, and plenty of lessons along the way. Setbacks are a natural part of this process, and if you can embrace them rather than shy away from them, you will grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. Keep your vision in mind, be patient, stay adaptable, and remember that setbacks are not roadblocks. They're simply detours that will eventually lead you to where you're meant to go. When you understand this, you'll find that your vision is not only attainable, but is ultimately a product of the persistence, resilience, and adaptability you've developed on your journey. In our pursuit of success, there is a critical realization we must come to terms with. There is never a perfect time to start. So often, we wait for the ideal moment. When the circumstances align just right, when we have all the resources, or when we feel fully prepared. The idea of the perfect moment becomes an illusion, a reason to delay action, and ultimately a form of procrastination. What many fail to understand is that the perfect time is not something that can be predicted or planned. It's something we create by choosing to take action, regardless of the conditions. The problem with waiting for the perfect moment is that it often keeps us stuck in a cycle of inaction. We think we need to wait until everything is aligned, until we know everything, have everything, and are perfectly equipped to succeed. But the truth is, this moment will never come. There will always be challenges, uncertainties, and obstacles, no matter when we decide to begin. The key is not to wait for the perfect time, but to create the conditions for success through consistent action, even when things aren't ideal. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we need to be fully prepared before we take the first step. We convince ourselves that we need more time to study, more time to plan, or more time to gather resources. But the reality is that action itself creates preparation. The more we engage in the process, the more we learn and adapt. The first step is never perfect, and the second one won't be either. But with each step, we gain momentum, and the experience we accumulate along the way builds the knowledge and skills we need to move forward. It's only through action that we begin to fill in the gaps, refine our strategies, and make course corrections. Waiting for the perfect moment is often just a form of self-doubt disguised as caution. It's a way of delaying progress because we're afraid of not being fully ready. It's important to understand that perfection doesn't exist. The more we strive for perfection, the more we paralyze ourselves because perfection is an impossible standard. Instead, we must learn to embrace imperfection and the idea that the best we can do is take the next step with the knowledge and resources we have at the moment. When we start, we might not have all the answers, but we'll gain them along the way. The process of trial and error is how we learn, grow, and refine our approach. The more we take action, the more we realize that progress isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent, learning from mistakes, and making adjustments as we go. Taking action before we feel fully ready also helps to build confidence. The longer we wait to begin, the more self-doubt creeps in. We become obsessed with making the right choice, and in doing so, we delay the very action that will give us the experience and confidence we need. Every time we delay, we reinforce the idea that we're not ready, and that further discourages us. But the moment we take that first step, however imperfect, it sets a positive feedback loop in motion. We prove to ourselves that we can move forward despite uncertainty. Each action, no matter how small, adds to our sense of competence, and over time, we begin to trust ourselves and our ability to handle whatever challenges come our way. Taking action before we feel ready also has the power to reveal opportunities that we may not have seen from the sidelines. We often think that we need everything mapped out before we start, but in reality, the world doesn't always work that way. We can plan as much as we want, but until we actually start moving, we don't know what will truly work. There are countless opportunities that will present themselves only after we begin. When we take action, we gain insight into what's actually needed, what works, and what doesn't. By starting, we expose ourselves to a world of possibilities and connections that we could never have imagined while waiting for the perfect moment. Furthermore, waiting for the perfect time can cause us to miss out on valuable experiences. Life is unpredictable, and if we wait for everything to align perfectly, we risk letting the moment slip by. Opportunities don't always come around twice, and every time we hesitate, we risk losing the chance to act. This fear of missing out is often more harmful than the fear of failure because it's a reminder that we're not taking full advantage of the opportunities that come our way. By starting now, we begin to experience the journey, accumulate the lessons, and encounter the opportunities that only come from being in motion. Another powerful aspect of taking action before feeling ready is that it forces us to adapt and become resourceful. When we begin, we may not have everything we think we need, but we quickly learn to make do with what we have. This resourcefulness is an essential skill for success. The more we take action, the more we develop our ability to navigate challenges and think creatively. We begin to see solutions that we wouldn't have noticed if we had remained in the planning phase. Life has a way of providing what we need when we start, but only if we are willing to take that initial step, even when it feels uncertain. In the end, the perfect time doesn't exist, and the best time to start is always right now. If we wait for everything to be perfectly aligned, we risk waiting forever. The key is not to wait for perfection, but to take imperfect action, learn as we go, and trust that the process will guide us. Success doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from taking the first step, then the next, and continuing to move forward, no matter how uncertain the path may seem. So, stop waiting for everything to be perfect. Start now and trust that the journey will unfold exactly as it's meant to. One of the most powerful things you can do in your journey towards success is to surround yourself with the right people. We often underestimate the influence that those around us have on our mindset, our actions, and ultimately our results. The people you choose to spend your time with will either propel you forward or hold you back, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, or mentors. The people you interact with on a regular basis shape the way you think, act, and perceive the world. This is why it's crucial to be intentional about the relationships you cultivate, as they have the potential to influence your success or failure. There's an old saying that goes, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This is more than just a cliche. It's a reflection of the reality we live in. Human beings are social creatures, and we naturally absorb the thoughts, behaviors, and attitudes of those around us. If you spend your time with people who are negative, complacent, or lacking ambition, their mindset will begin to influence yours. You may start to adopt their limiting beliefs, doubts, and fears. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with people who are positive, driven, and successful, their mindset rubs off on you. You begin to think more positively, believe in your potential, and take bold actions that push you closer to your goals. The people around you act as mirrors, reflecting the mindset you carry. If you are around people who constantly talk about how hard life is and how success is out of reach, you may begin to internalize those beliefs. Negative energy can become contagious. You might start questioning your abilities or doubting the possibilities before you. In contrast, when you spend time with individuals who are passionate about their goals, who see opportunities rather than obstacles, and who support and encourage you, your mindset shifts. Their belief in you becomes your belief in yourself, and their actions inspire you to take your own. It's not just about the people you spend time with directly, but also the people you choose to learn from. In today's world, we are fortunate to have access to a vast network of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Through books, podcasts, online courses, and other resources, we can connect with mentors, thought leaders, and experts who can guide us on our journey. The value of learning from those who have already walked the path you're on cannot be overstated. They have valuable insights that can help you avoid mistakes, make better decisions, and accelerate your progress. The right mentor can help you see things from a different perspective, encourage you when you feel discouraged, and challenge you to think bigger and push harder. But it's not just about absorbing information. It's also about surrounding yourself with people who take action. It's easy to get stuck in the trap of consuming knowledge without applying it. This is where having the right people around you becomes especially important. When you surround yourself with individuals who are actively working toward their goals and taking consistent action, it motivates you to do the same. You begin to realize that knowledge alone isn't enough. You need to pair it with action. And the best way to do that is by being around others who are also in motion. They hold you accountable, inspire you to stay consistent, and remind you that success is built on daily effort. This principle also applies to the energy and environment that you create. The people you surround yourself with have a direct influence on the energy you bring to the table. If you spend your days with people who are negative or stagnant, it can drain your energy and enthusiasm. It's challenging to stay motivated and inspired in an environment that is filled with pessimism and apathy. But when you surround yourself with people who radiate positivity, enthusiasm, and purpose, your own energy shifts. You become more excited about your goals and more determined to take the necessary steps to achieve them. The power of a supportive community is undeniable. We are social creatures, and humans thrive in environments where they feel supported, encouraged, and valued. Having a strong support system, whether it's friends, family, mentors, or colleagues, can make all the difference in the world. When you have people who genuinely care about your success and who are rooting for you, it gives you the confidence and strength to keep going even when times get tough. They remind you of your worth, help you overcome doubts, and offer advice and encouragement when needed. A good support system provides not only practical help, but also emotional resilience, which is crucial for staying the course when challenges arise. At the same time, it's important to recognize that not all relationships will contribute positively to your growth. Sometimes, we must make difficult decisions about who to keep in our inner circle. This doesn't mean cutting people off completely, but it may mean limiting the amount of time and energy you invest in relationships that drain you or hold you back. Negative influences, whether from people who are toxic, unsupportive, or dismissive of your goals, can have a subtle yet significant impact on your progress. It's essential to protect your mental and emotional energy by setting boundaries and choosing to spend more time with those who encourage and uplift you. The key to success is recognizing that you don't have to do everything alone. You don't need to figure it all out by yourself. The right people can guide you, support you, and challenge you to reach your fullest potential. By intentionally surrounding yourself with individuals who inspire, motivate, and push you to be better, you create a powerful network that amplifies your chances of success. Success is not just about what you know or what you can do on your own. It's about who you have around you and how their influence shapes your growth. When you make the right choice in who you surround yourself with, you are setting yourself up for a future of success and fulfillment. In conclusion, the journey towards success is not a straight path, nor is it something that happens overnight. It's a process that requires you to move past your doubts, embrace challenges, and take consistent action, even when the timing doesn't seem perfect. The key to unlocking your potential lies in your willingness to stop thinking and start doing, taking action, learning from setbacks, and refining your approach as you go. You must remain persistent, patient, and adaptable, knowing that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Surround yourself with those who lift you higher, who challenge you to think bigger, and who push you to become the best version of yourself. And never forget that success is not about waiting for the perfect moment, but about creating it through your actions. You will face obstacles, face moments of doubt, and feel tempted to give up. But remember that every setback is an opportunity for growth. The vision you hold in your mind is powerful, and with the right mindset, determination, and the right people by your side, nothing can stop you from reaching it. The only thing standing between where you are now and where you want to be is your decision to stop thinking and start doing. The time to act is now, because waiting only delays your success. So take that first step, trust in yourself, and move forward with confidence. Your future begins the moment you choose to take action, and the possibilities are endless when you embrace the journey ahead with passion and purpose.